Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar with Quuppa ThinkInside. My name is Jesse Parnanen, and I'm the marketing designer here at Quuppa. I will be facilitating this discussion today, where we're going to be talking about RetailerIN for COVID-19 emergency. Just while we're waiting for the last few people to come online, I'd like to just do some housekeeping. So if at any time during the webinar you have any questions, in the GoToWebinar applications, there is a questions tab. Feel free to put any questions in during the webinar, and we have reserved some time at the end to go through some questions. Obviously, this is a very exceptional time at the minute for everybody, so I appreciate everyone that's coming online. But without further ado, let's go through with Jacopo. I have Jacopo Carreras here, who is the CEO of ThinkInside, and he'll be taking the majority of this webinar. So Jacopo, I'll hand it over to you if you want to give a brief introduction and talk about today's agenda.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Jesse, for the introduction. So what is going to be the main topic of today's agenda is, well, to, of course, introduce you to RetailerIN, our technology in a way, but more importantly, to present you, how we as ThinkInside are kind of trying to support the current situation related to COVID-19 and the current crisis that, retailers in general, but supermarkets in particular are addressing nowadays. Just a few words about the company. So ThinkInside, we are an Italian-based company specialized in location intelligence in different sectors, but retail is definitely the one that we actually started a long time ago, and that's also when we got in touch with Quuppa. I think it was 2013 when one of our founding members met Fabio Belloni, so two Italians meeting in Helsinki and starting to discuss about tracking technologies, one looking for tracking, the other one providing tracking, and that's actually how everything actually started. So as I was saying, in these days is a very special time. So we are all facing difficulties in our daily life, including retail, and retail in particular is now facing a new way to operate, a new way to kind of run their own business, at least very different from what it used to be until today. But before jumping into what COVID has in terms of implications for retail, let me briefly tell you a little bit about what we're doing for the retailers. And to do this, I like actually to do a sort of an analogy with the online world. That's an easy way to explaining what we're doing for retail and for supermarkets. And when it comes to online, we're all familiar with the many different services like Amazon, many different services. And what we definitely know is that these services are extremely effective in tailoring, the offer, in tailoring the service to our, personal needs and expectations. And the main reason for this is twofold. On the one hand, they can measure very precisely what every single person is doing online. And when it comes to measuring, there's a number of metrics that they can detect when we browse, as an example, Amazon or any kind of online service, from page views, unique visitors. I mean, without going into the detail, there's a bunch of things that they can actually detect, measure over time, measure by geography, by context, by many different variables. And of course, it's not just about measuring, it's also about the many different tools that they can actually use to measure these metrics. So in a very short time, they're able to learn a lot about our habits, about our expectation, our preferences. This is the first step. The second step is that once they measure, they can rapidly adapt their service to our preferences and profile. And the way they typically do to adapt is a very well-known technique, which is A/B testing. They can run the same service in different ways, trying to customize the service to the specific person they have in front. And this is an iterative process that rapidly leads to a better service, which is in particular tailored to the specific service. And these are the two key reasons why online is nowadays extremely effective in tailoring the specific proposition to the end user, to the end online visitor. Now, when we started RetailerIN, the main question that we ask ourselves is whether something similar can also be done in brick and mortar retail. So online is so successful because of these many different tools. Can we actually apply the same paradigm also in brick and mortar retail? Of course, so to bring the same benefits. Well, and after having worked for many years in retail, the answer is yes. And the way we do this is by analyzing and mapping very precisely the shopping journeys of customers in a retail shop. The way it works is that we track shopping carts and baskets, or in some cases also smartphones, by means of Quuppa technology. So we know precisely where every single shopping cart and basket is moving. We track and we collect all this information in our cloud. We process all this information with our proprietary algorithms and technologies, and we eventually transform all this into knowledge, on the one hand, about shoppers' behavior, about what they're doing, where they're staying, where they're spending their time, but also real-time services. An example of a real-time service is, for instance, product search, wayfinding in the store, queue management, many different services that can be used by using this information in real time. And the benefits of tracking shopping carts and baskets are manifold. But the main one is that even in a very short time, we're able to collect a large amount of data that can lead very rapidly to, first of all, understanding, and secondly, key decisions on how to reorganize a given store, the layout, the merchandise strategies, many different decisions that can be taken already after a very short time of collecting data and analyzing shoppers' behavior. The way how this looks in practice for those of you who are not completely familiar with Quuppa technology is pretty much represented in these pictures. There's a number of antennas that needs to be installed in the store. And of course here, the precision of the localization is a key requirement. When it comes to a grocery store, what we need to do is be able to distinguish whether a given customer is in one aisle or in the following one. And for doing this, of course, Quuppa is doing a great job. Quuppa is able to precisely distinguish with some meter accuracy whether one shopping is moving in one aisle or another, whether it's stopping in front of a given end cap. All these are key requirements for getting the right data that allow us to do a good job in mapping the shopping journey of our customers. So antennas are being installed in the store. With antennas, we're collecting data, and of course, it's not just about antenna, it's also about some tags that are being placed on the trolleys and baskets in the store. These are some examples on how these tags are being installed. This highly depends on the specific basket or trolley, but in general, as of today, this is how we have been using the tags and how we have been installing the tags. Now, with this infrastructure and collecting the data and processing the data, what eventually we're doing, we are fully mapping the shopping journey of customers. So we know when the customer is entering the store, whether the customer is using a basket or a trolley to shop, whether the customer is spending some time in front of the refrigerators area, or how much time the customer is waiting at the serve area, whether he's visiting or not visiting a given aisle, until he gets to the checkout and he goes and leaves the store. Now, what we're also able to do with this technology is we're able to link the shopping journey of the customer with sales data when sales data is available, is made available by the retailer. So in other words, we're able to measure very precisely everything about every single shopping journey happening in the store. And this, when it's processed at very large scale, translates into the ability to precisely measure the shopping funnel. So this is the typical shopping funnel of a retail shop. So there's the shoppers getting into the store. There are shoppers passing in front of a given product or a given category or a given aisle. Then there are shoppers stopping. Stopping means, there's a form of engagement with that given product or category. Engagement means interest. It means there's something that is capturing the attention of the shopper. And eventually there are shoppers that are buying. And depending on where this funnel is going, is narrowing or not, there are different interventions that the retailer can think of. So as an example, if the funnel goes is shrinking at the level of shoppers passing in front of a given product or category, most likely there is a problem on the layout of the store. Shoppers are not reaching that given product. They're not getting there. And oftentimes this depends on how the layout of the store is actually organized. If the shoppers, as an example, are not being engaged with a given product or category, so in that case, most likely is a problem of communication, is a problem of products, of category. So different things should be taught in order to increase the engagement of the shoppers with that given product or category. And finally, if the problem is buying, this means that shoppers are reaching a given product, they're stopping in front of it, but they're not completing the purchase. So in that case, typically is a problem of products. So you can change the brand, you can change maybe the specific product, but the key takeaway message is that we are able to very precisely measure every single step of this funnel with data that can be customized based on days of the week, profile of the shoppers, and based on this, a lot of considerations and interventions can be planned and can be measured. Can be measured very, very precisely. Now, if we go back, to the beginning of the story, so can we apply online techniques to the offline world? This is, as an example, how key online KPIs are mapping to brick and mortar. Page views are now mapped to shoppers, return visitors are mapped to return shoppers, the time on site can be matched to dwell time in the store. We are able pretty much to do a very similar work, which means also we're able to utilize very powerful tools in terms of data analysis. And of course, we're able to learn very rapidly what is actually happening and plan interventions that can be measured over time in order to incrementally and iteratively improve the overall performance of the store. Let me make the one very simple example of an A/B testing. This is from a real case. In this specific case, the customer was infrastructuring 2 different shops. The two shops actually had a very similar layout and a very similar social demographics. And what they have been doing in this case is using one store as a test store and the other one as a control store. In the test store, interventions had been implemented in order to achieve certain objectives, and the results were compared, of course, with the control store. And if you do this iteratively, 1 week after the other, or 1 month after the other, of course, you learn a lot of things that can then be implemented across the chain. And this is actually where the benefits for a retail chain comes. You may infrastructure even just a few number of stores, maybe 10 stores, 20 stores, but the key benefit is that what you learn in 20 stores can then be replicated across the chain. And this multiplicating factor is actually what brings the highest ROI and value for the end customer. So A/B testing in the real world. This is actually what we are providing to our customers. And of course, until now I have been talking about analytics, shopper insights, but it's not just about this. By knowing what shoppers are doing in real time in the store, there's a number of real-time services that can also be delivered right away. In terms of this can help, to improve operations, can help to improve the engagement with the shoppers, can help the retailer in many different phases of the overall management of the store. And this is just a list of the many different services that can be enabled or augmented with location data and with our technology. So it's not just about analytics, it's about the many different phases of shopping inside. So it's learning, but it's also intervening right away when the shopper is inside your store. And of course, this data is useful for the many different functions in the store. When it's about analytics and it's about shoppers' behavior, this is pretty much about the people working in the area of layout, the area of merchandising, understanding how it is possible to better and best run the shop. When it's about queue management, it's about the people caring mostly about operations, and overall management of the single store or the single one store or many store. Loss preventions can also be enabled with our technology. In this case, it's mostly about preventing push outs, so people entering the store and leaving the store without going through the checkout. And finally, it's about marketing. And marketing means in-store engagement, being able to interact, as an example, with a mobile application running in the pocket of the shoppers. It's about wayfinding. It's about creative ways to engage the shopper when in the store. One single platform that can actually serve many different functions inside a retail organization. And of course, knowing that having a precise snapshot of the store is something that is extremely valuable, in these days. As we all know, with COVID-19, the way we shop has been changed very significantly. No longer we shop every single week. We rather use online shopping also for grocery, for supermarkets. There's a number of measures that actually are being enforced for retailers. This is mostly about social distancing. So how many shoppers can enter the store over time. It's about shopping frequency. So we no longer shop on 2-3 times a week, but we rather have big shopping once a week or even less. And it's about controlling all this over time. So it's about letting only a limited number of shoppers entering the store, and it's about making sure that all these rules are respected. And this, of course, is posing a lot of pressures on supermarkets beyond other aspects that they currently need to address, such as supply chain. So for them, being able to address all these issues is one of the biggest challenges they're facing these days. And with our technology and with RetailerIN, we're trying to help them in a way, especially when it comes to social distance in the store. Social distance means that by knowing where shoppers are by means of their trolley and basket, we're able not only to measure how many shoppers are currently in the store, but we're also able to measure their density in the different sections and different areas of the store. This can be done in real time and with very high precision. And this is pretty much linked to the social distance compliance that the retailers must respect in these days. So the different services that we're able to deliver are related, on the one hand, to occupancy. Occupancy means that with our technology, we're able to control screens that are placed at the entrance of the store, and depending on the current occupancy level of the retailer, we can let other shoppers enter the store. And then as soon as other shoppers leave, then of course the threshold can be adjusted, and we can let other shoppers enter the store. Occupancy is also linked to a way to communicate with the staff in the store in real time. So personnel not only can control the people entering the store, but can also react if specific situations are detected. As an example, if there's some density of shoppers beyond some threshold in some given section of the store, they can send someone to just sort that out. So it's really about getting a live help to manage the store under this specific COVID-19 situation. And it's about the density mostly of the shoppers. This information is collected and is used in real time, but of course is also collected over time, which means that this is something that we can measure over time, and so we can understand whether there are some specific critic aspects that should be addressed, as an example, in the layout of the store. If there is like a section of the store where densities are constantly above some given threshold, then this is something that can suggest that probably the layout of that given section should be revised accordingly. So to spread more uniformly the shoppers in the store and avoid such a congestion. So in a way, this data collected over time can help retailers to understand how to intervene in order to support social distancing of the shoppers under these new circumstances. And the most important thing actually is that this way of shopping is definitely changing the way we behave in the store. Layouts have been traditionally designed in order to achieve certain objectives that now, of course, are being questioned. No longer the layout that have been used for many different years are valid, because now our way to shop is completely different. And collecting data and analyzing this data can help retailers to understand how this can define new ways to design layouts, measure them, of course, and then implement this in the real stores. In other words, we're actually helping retailers to reinvent the shopping experience under the COVID-19 emergency. So in a way, with RetailerIN, we're helping retailers to reinvent the shopping experience with location. So this is actually what I wanted to present you today. I'm a little bit ahead of time, but this leaves, of course, space for questions.
Okay, thank you, Jacopo. Very insightful in terms of retail and using RTLS for retail, especially trying to combat this COVID-19 and how we can take measures to enforce that. So we're going to move on to a Q&A now. But just before we do, I would like to let everyone know that if you would like to reach out to Quuppa, anything related to marketing, any marketing materials, or if you would like to become a technology partner with Quuppa, then I would recommend you send us an email at marketing@quuppa.com. Or if you're looking for any more information regarding our technology or how it works, then you can visit our website or send us a contact form, etc. If you're more interested in looking at partnering with ThinkInside or finding out more about their retail solution, or thinking about any of the other solutions that ThinkInside actually provide, then I'd recommend sending an email directly to Jacopo at jacopo.carreras@thinkinside.io. One thing to mention is that I will make the slides available to everybody who is online, and there will also be a recording of the webinar made available to other people online as well. So you'll be able to directly click these links. But yeah, if you want to find out more about ThinkIn solutions, then, or specifically this RetailerIN solution, then visit RetailerIN.com. While we've got a couple of minutes spare, and Jacopo finished a little bit early, which is great, but once again, if you have any questions, please use the questions section in the GoToWebinar application. I can see that we do have a few of those coming in right now, so we will get started on that. But I just wanted to mention also, tomorrow we will also be hosting another webinar, which would be geared more towards Industry 4.0, so that's logistics and manufacturing, which will also be with ThinkInside. So if you would like any more information on that, if you would like a link to register for the webinar, then I would recommend going and registering for that one also. It's very similar, but talking about how we're using Quuppa technology alongside ThinkIn's solution for to help with this COVID-19 pandemic. But let's move on to some questions now. So we've had plenty of people on the line, so I appreciate everyone that's taken the patience to be online with us. I've got some questions here, Jacopo. The first question is based on KPI metrics. It's related to one of the slides that you had. It says, how do you link sales data with foot traffic?
All right, so this is a very good question. So first of all, we're able to do this, of course, when sales data is being shared by the retailer, which not always is the case, but oftentimes it is. Actually, linking the shopping journey of customers with sales data and being able to process these two data sources jointly, that's when the key value comes from our technology, because then that's when we're closing the loop in the funnel that I was showing you before. And the way we do this is by linking the data that we collect, connecting the two data sources when the shoppers is going through the checkout count. That's actually when we're able to connect the two things together, which means that we know the full shopping journey of customer, and we know also every single product the customer was buying, And by doing this, we're able to process the two things together. And so that's how we connect the two things. So shopping journey on the one hand and sales data on the other.
Okay, great, fantastic. We've got a few more questions here. I think this one is a little bit more related to the return that we get. It says, how long does it take to get some initial results and how to compute your ROI?
Okay,
so do you have an example?
This is a pretty structured question, meaning that, so in terms of returns, so the key advantage of this technology is that, we're really processing data in large volumes. So also addressing one of the questions that I see here arrived, by tracking shopping carts and baskets, based on our experience, we're pretty much tracking approximately 95% of the shoppers, at least in a sufficiently large retail store. Usually, the people that do not use either a shopping cart or basket are probably buying no more than 5 items, and that accounts for something like 5% of the total shopping journeys of customers. So the first thing is we're processing a large volume of data. Already after 1 week in a normal retail store, we can process something like 1,000 of shopping journeys. So the learning curve is very fast. So from the day one, the system is activated. After 1 week already, we have thousands of shopping journeys to analyze and to process and to transform in KPIs, metrics, and answer to the business questions of a retailer. The specific ROI, it depends, from the kind of problems that a specific retailer is facing. Problems could be related to layout. Problem could be related to merchandising strategies, to promo analysis. There are many different projects that we are able to run on the data we collect, and we're able to, with this project, to answer the specific questions of the customers. And when it comes to ROI, another important thing is that, especially when it comes to analytics, what you learn in a few stores is replicated over the entire chain. So this multiplicating factor is what is determined when it comes to analytics, the specific ROI of this kind of projects. So you learn in 10 stores and you replicate maybe of 700, 800 stores. And this actually can bring an ROI that can be really worth millions of, as an example, dollars in one specific case that I have in mind in terms of returns. This is something that can really make the difference in the retailer in terms of the way they do things, in the way they plan, the layout of the store, in the way they plan the specific merchandising strategies that are being implemented on the shop floor. But in terms of what is the ROI, as I said, this really depends on how you run the project, which are your specific problems that you're facing and you want to address with this knowledge that you're getting from this data. But the ROI can be very fast. This is another important takeaway message. The ROI can be very fast depending on how open you are to implement interventions in the store, how open you are actually to go from where you are to implement interventions and then to roll out this intervention at scale.
Okay, fantastic. And obviously, yeah, it takes a little while for the ROI to come back after you generate analytics and data, and then optimize the processes, and then compare that back to when you first started the project. So obviously, that's should be good. One thing I would like to say is we're having a lot of questions coming in about the slides. We will be sharing the slides just for everyone else that's online. We'll be sharing the slides to everyone that attended. We'll send out some post-care email content. Yeah, so in regarding to the PDFs or the slides being made available, I'd just like to say to everybody that yes, they will be made available. But let's move on. Jacopo, I think you should be able to also see the questions here, but I'll go with another one here. In terms of population of shoppers, what sample size are you able to achieve by only tracking assets or trolleys?
Yeah, so as I was saying before, based on our experience, we are roughly covering 95% of the shoppers. So what is left is the people who are not using any basket or trolley. These, of course, for us are invisible, but these typically are, on the one hand, just a limited part, very limited, approximately 5%. And on the other, those are not also very relevant for the retailer, because those are kind of occasional shoppers coming in because maybe they forgot a few things, they get them and then just they leave. So those are not really those shoppers determining the volume of the sales of a retailer. So the overall coverage, I think, is in the order of 95% of the shoppers coming in a retail shop. Yeah, this is what we are able to achieve with this technology.
Okay, fantastic. Got another question here. What is your advantage compared with cameras able to track shoppers without any connection to, like, for example, having a smartphone or a trolley? So what's the advantage in having your solution versus having just camera solutions?
Yeah, so here the main advantage is that we're able to cover the shopping journey of customer from the moment the shopper enters the store until it reaches the checkout. So it's a full shopping journey mapping. Of course, this could also potentially be done, with cameras. There's a couple of companies that actually are doing this, but doing it with cameras would mean to infrastructure the entire shop with a very large number of cameras, which need to process data in real time, or even not in real time, but connecting, the same shopper across different cameras. So this really requires a huge computational power and a huge investment in terms of infrastructure, especially if you think at a very large retail store, maybe 5,000 or more square meters. So that's something that I would say is not really ideal for this kind of scenario, whereas cameras are more appropriate when you want to focus on specific sections of the store. As an example, if you want to focus on a given aisle only, then probably cameras is more appropriate. But if you want to focus on the complete mapping of the shopping journey from the moment the shopper enters the store until it gets to the checkout, and linking this with sales data, and then getting all this information at scale, then this technology is definitely much more powerful than cameras.
Okay, fantastic. And then I've got another one here as well, which is maybe slightly related to that one. How would you track returning shoppers? Surely with an app, or is there a way of tracking returning customers, or is it single use only?
Yeah, so correct. So so when it comes to shopping basket and trolleys, of course, this is completely anonymous. The way to track returning customers can be twofold. Either is through a mobile application. So in this case, everything is driven by a mobile application that is installed by the end user. And in this case, of course, we know who the end user is, and so we're able to compute those kind of metrics, such as the returning rate of visitors. Or alternatively, in some cases, what is also possible to do is to have some loyalty card associated, as an example, with the transaction. And so only for those shoppers who actually are using the loyalty card, it's possible to know the frequency according to which they shop. So these are the two ways we're able to measure the return rate of a visitor, of a shopper in the store. But in general, and actually in most of the cases, the tracking that we realize is anonymous for many different reasons, including also privacy. In general, when it comes to tracking a shopping cart and basket, this is a completely anonymous tracking, which moves away from all the questions and issues related to privacy, which is always good in a way. But when the retailer is interested also to measure KPIs such as return rate or return frequency, then the way to do this is either through a mobile application or by the data that can be collected together with the POS data, so with the transaction. That's how we do it.
Okay, very interesting. I've got another question here. I'm not 100% sure on the nature of the question. It says, do you have any retailer client in North America? I'm not sure if they're asking if we have any projects in North America, or whether we have a partner working in North America, but do you want to elaborate a little bit on that one?
Yeah. So yeah, we do have both customers and partners in North America. That's definitely, so we're based in Italy. So the way we try to operate, as always, is with partners, because of course there's two things when we deploy a system like this. On the one hand, there is all the part on software. This is actually what we are really good at with our technology and our platform. And on the other, there is also the need to deploy and manage the infrastructure, the tracking, the Quuppa infrastructure, as well as to manage the customer. And so oftentimes it's very ideal to have a partner who's taking care of managing the customer and the infrastructure, where we mostly focus on KPI metrics and software and platform. So we have customers in North America. We're working also with partners in North America. It's a very interesting market, of course. It's huge, very big retailers there. Well, the biggest retailer is actually there in North America. But of course, we're more than happy and open to have additional partners on board and to work with partners in that region. So anyone interested, please drop me a line, and I'm happy to follow up on that.
Awesome, sounds great. What else have we got in here? There's plenty of questions, so thank you to everyone for sending these questions in. Jacopo, I hope you're not having too much of a hard time answering these, but there's another one here. How do you actually do theft prevention in real time and avoid theft, the stolen product going out of the supermarket? Is that something that is achievable through the software, through the system? Sorry.
Yeah, so good question. So as of today, the kind of loss prevention that we're targeting is what is called a push out. A push out is a shopper entering in the store, doing the shopping, but actually leaving without going to the checkout. And so what we actually experience is that in some regions, especially in North America, this is oftentimes a problem, because differently from Europe, you don't have always a gate to go in and go out in the shop. In the retail shop, it's much more open than in Europe. So as an example, in North America, this is oftentimes a problem. And of course, by tracking in real time where the shopper is, where he's entering, where he's staying, like in the store, in which areas the store is spending time, and whether he's going through the checkout or not, we can detect in real time a push out. As of today, what we can do, we can notify this event, as an example, to the security staff of the retailer, or we can trigger some sort of alarm. In the near future, we're working to also being able to kind of block the wheel of the trolley with a partner that we are currently working with. So the overall completion of this would be that we detect the push out, and then we block the trolley before the trolley leaves the store. What we're not able to do as of today is to track product just like an RFID and block that given product before leaving the store. This is something that currently we're not providing for retailer. Push out is our main focus in terms of loss prevention.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. That'll be very interested to see how that develops. One thing I would like to say is that we have quite a few questions and we only have 7 minutes left. So one thing I would like to say is that if your question did not get answered, we have a record of all the questions that have been asked. So we will we'll discuss this internally and along with ThinkInside, and we will get back to all the questions that were asked. So I do apologize if we don't get through your one. But regardless, moving on. Would it be possible to complete similar tracking in an outside environment that is larger, such as tracking specific people in a city? What kind of infrastructure would be required?
Well, yeah, it's this is probably more a question for you, or well, for Quuppa in general. As in any RTLS project, anything that is covered by locator can be tracked. So this could be a retail shop, but could be also like the parking of a retail shop. As an example, one additional service that we have implemented is also for knowing the number of trolleys that are outside the shop. It's possible to place some antennas outside, very high, like on the poles or on the light poles in the parking. And with this infrastructure, we know how many trolleys are being left outside of the shop. And by doing this, of course, we can trigger some person to go out, pick them and bring them back in the store, only in this case when really needed. As of today, oftentimes there is a person that is dedicated just to this all the time. It's just going back and forth and just getting the trolleys left and bringing them back in the store. With this infrastructure, it's possible to know how many are left outside the store, where they are located, so that the person can come only when really needed. And of course, this has some implications also in terms of operational costs, meaning that maybe this person can do this only when needed, and when not needed actually can do something else. But in general, anything that is covered by a Quuppa locator can be tracked and can be also used in the kind of services that we provide to retailers. Everything is driven by the RTLS infrastructure.
Absolutely, yeah, and coming in from a Quuppa perspective on this point as well, not just necessarily within retail, but if you do have an outside environment that is much larger and you're specifically looking at tracking people in a larger area, then like I said, I would recommend contacting us either at marketing@quuppa.com or visit our website and find out a bit more information at quuppa.com. And you can also contact us on our contact page if you have a specific project that you are interested in, especially if it's a large scale project. Even outside, we do have locators which are and tags which have the capability of being external, so that is definitely a possibility. Right, a few more of these. How is the solution priced? Now let's maybe not give prices out right now, but Jacopo, how what would you say to that?
Yeah, so without of course giving prices, it's a SaaS model, meaning that we sell the solution according to a SaaS model where there's a setup fee for infrastructure in the store, and then there is a recurring fee for using our cloud-based service. And the recurring fee depends on the kind of services that the customer, the retailer, is purchasing. There's analytics, there's real-time services, there's potentially the integration with the mobile app. So there's a rich set of services, as I was showing you in one slide, that can be delivered, by our infrastructure. And this is also, I think, one of the key advantages of this technology, and also our technology in particular, meaning that there's one single investment on infrastructure based on which it's possible to deliver a very rich set of services, targeting the many different needs of a retailer. Needs from the layout and merchandising point of view, needs from the operational point of view, needs for the marketing point of view. Each one of these functions can actually get some benefit by adopting this technology and by mapping this technology into specific services that either they use internally or they can deliver to the shopper in the store. And pricing is kind of structured along the lines of this, meaning that depending on the services that the retailer is purchasing, then there's an additional fee, recurrent fee for that given service. Yeah, this is how pricing is structured. And of course, if you want to know pricing of Quuppa, then Jesse or the marketing team at Quuppa then can help on that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got a few more. I'm wary we only have 2 minutes left, but let's go with this one. We've got a question: which tags are used? What tags do you use in your RetailerIN projects?
So this is a very good question. It's again one of the key value proposition of Quuppa. There's a number of partners from the Quuppa ecosystem, and more coming in and joining even recently. In general, there's a few criteria for choosing the tag for this kind of scenario. The main criteria is the IP certification. Trolleys can be in the store, but can also be outside. So outside means rains, means cold, and means dust, and means many different things that can stress the tag itself. So IP certification is definitely a key requirement for choosing tags in this scenario. Another key requirement is the battery lifetime. For these projects, a minimum of 1.5 years or 2 years is kind of what is really needed, because then there's maintenance cost involved. And the third thing is also certification, meaning that we're working in Europe, in North America, depending on the country. Also, the certification of the tag is something that we need to look at for choosing the right one. In many projects, we have been using Quuppa tags, the Quuppa standard tags. In other projects, we have been using some tags from other partners, and even these days, we are now considering some newly added tags to the Quuppa family that probably can do a very good job for these kind of scenarios. But in general, the three requirements are the one that I mentioned. The last requirement is also to the form factor, meaning that especially if you have baskets, where to place the tag might be an issue because the space is pretty limited. So form factor is the fourth element to look at when choosing the tag. But once you have this kind of 4 criteria there, then you can easily choose the tags available from the Quuppa partner ecosystem, and then just identify the one that is best suitable for the given project.
Yeah, exactly. And just coming in again from a Quuppa perspective, we have a huge ecosystem of tag partners and a variety of Quuppa approved tags, which can also be found on our website. They all host a variety of use cases and a variety of different industry verticals, and things are more specified for other things than other tags. So yeah, there is a variety to go with, but if you, like I said, if you need any more information, then feel free to send us an email at Quuppa, or if you want to find out more about the RetailerIN solution, then you can speak to Jacopo at ThinkInside. We've come to the end now. I think we've run over just by 1 minute. One thing I would like to say is we haven't been able to get through all of these questions. We will answer these questions either via email, or we'll do sort of a smaller Q&A. We've had things in such as tracking employees, design criteria for density of locators, some things about GDPR issues, specifically in the UK and in other countries around Europe as well. So unfortunately, if we haven't been able to get through your question today, there's no fear. We will be getting back to you via email. But I think other than that, let's not use up too much more time. But I'd like to thank everybody for attending today, and I hope you found it very useful. We've had a great attendance rate, so I can see that people are very interested in this topic. Please do keep an eye out for more webinars that we're going to come up. And like I said, tomorrow we have another one focusing more on Industry 4.0 logistics and manufacturing. So let's. I would encourage everyone to register for that one. But unless there's anything else, Jacopo, I would like to just say thank you to everyone for attending, and wish you a very well and safe rest of the day and rest of the week. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.